Hi guys, and welcome to Brooker Ceramics. This week I'm challenging myself to make these really tiny little vases. I'm hoping this will become part of a mini vase series where I can slowly make smaller and smaller vases, but at the moment this is probably the smallest I can go. So what I'm going to do this week is show you how I made this from weighing out the clay through to throwing and trimming and then the final pieces. I'll describe all my steps along the way and talk you through some of my thoughts. So I hope you find it useful and stay tuned. So just like with any exercise, before I get started, I just want to roughly draw out what these vases are going to look like, and then this helps me formulate my idea. I begin sketching out the outline and drawing it almost as if it is a cross section, like so. I'll then create the dimensions. So for this we're probably looking at about 5 centimeters by probably about 6 centimeters, and I'm going to be using stoneware clay and 250 grams. So let's weigh out some clay and see how we get on. So we're just going to weigh out my clay into balls. So now that I've got all my balls weighed out and ready to throw, what I'm going to do is go down onto the potter's wheel now and lay down some clay and attach the back to it so that once I finish throwing I can lift off the clay without having to potentially warp or disfigure the form by touching it. So I'm going to pull you into the potter's wheel and we'll take a look at that now. So I'm at the potter's wheel. As you can see, there's a little bit of clay already actually attached from the last throwing session. But what I've got is my reclaim bucket here, so any excess clay can go straight into there. And on this side, on the other side of the wheel, I've got my water bucket, so that throughout the process, if I need more water, it's within reach. I've also ensured that I've got my tools available, so I've got my wire to remove the vessel from the board, and then a couple of tools that will help throughout the throwing process. So what I want to do first is wet down the bat, like so, and then just dry it off a little bit so that it's damp but not wet. And then I'm going to carve in some grooves onto the wheel and then begin throwing. So I'll zoom you in so that you can take a look and see what's going on there. So you can see here there's some clay left over from my last throw, so I'm going to come in and use this tool and just redefine these grooves a little bit all throughout, and then I'm going to attach the bat on top. The bat's spinning roughly centered, which is great. There's a slight wobble, but that doesn't matter too much. So what I'm going to do now is pause the wheel and then put some downward pressure evenly across the bat, and that will hold the bat onto the wheel firmly. Now that the bat has been attached to the wheel, I'm just going to run the sponge over it one last time to make sure it's nice and wet before throwing the clay ball firmly down onto the bat itself in the centre. If I miss, it doesn't matter too much, I can correct for that later. The important thing here is that there's enough downward pressure when you throw the ball that the clay sticks really firmly to the bat. Once it's stuck to the board like that, what I like to do is just wet my hands and then just slowly run them over the ball, and it'll pull it back into that bowl shape. Once it's got a rough ball shape, I now want to use my index finger and press it down along the edge of the crease where the clay joins the bat. And that will allow it to really stick and seal to the bat itself. At this point, it doesn't really matter if it's central. We're going to sort that out in just a minute. But now the bat is sealed really tightly to the wheel and the clay is sealed to the bat. So we can now begin throwing. So with this being a very small vessel, I'm going to zoom you in so you can take a look and see all the details as I go. So first I want to cone and centre the clay, and I do this by clasping the clay ball either side of my hand and pushing it under slightly, and this will cause the clay to dip in and then bulge up and upwards. As the clay does that, I then transition my hand from this kind of motion to more kind of centrally and putting even pressure across all my palms. And that'll force the clay ball up and into a tall column. So I'll show you that now. Once you've got something like this, it's ready then to push back down into the clay, and what you do is you brace the side with this hand and you push the clay slightly forwards and down, and this will then cause it to pull in this area, and it should be relatively central. This can take a couple of times to do it, so I'm going to push it back down and then I'm going to cone and centre it again a couple more times so you can see that in action. Now I've got it nice and central. When I run my finger over it, it should be relatively smooth throughout and it shouldn't bump. So that's now centered nicely. What I want to do next is open up the clay, and I do this by pushing down into the clay and then pulling it sideways. Given the size of this vessel, I'm probably going to have to use my index finger. I want to create about an inch depth from the bottom. So I push in the needle, it should hopefully stand, and then use my index finger. You can see that that's roughly what I'm looking for. So now that it's opened, I need to push it outwards like that and then compress the base. So the inside now is ready. There's a slight wobble on the outside, so I'm going to come in now and just brace it with my hand and correct for that. And now it's spinning relatively smoothly. Now it's ready to start pinching the walls, so I'm probably only going to have to use these fingers, and I'm going to pinch it up and out. Now I've got the basic shape, I want to taper it in so I can create a nice kind of rim. Once you're happy with that, it's time to come in and tidy up the feet and then remove the excess slit. And then finally just removing the slit from inside of the vase itself. The last step is to run a wire underneath the vase and then remove the bat and set it aside to dry. Now that I've finished throwing my vase, I'm going to set it aside for a few days so that it goes nice and leather hard, and then it will be ready for trimming. So between now and then, what I want to do is create something called a chuck, and that will allow me to place the vase inside it. It will hold it in place so I can trim it up later. So I'll set this aside and then we'll come back in a day or so and begin the trimming process. A few days later and the ceramic vases are now nice and leather hard and they're ready to be trimmed. So what I've done offline is created a chuck. A chuck is just a ceramic vessel that you create that allows you to place other vessels inside it, and this will help hold the vessel steady because if you look at the neck of the vase, if I was to place that onto the potter's wheel for trimming, it would break it or deform it. So the chuck will come in really useful because it will hold everything really nicely in place and allow me to trim it. So let's zoom in, take a look and begin trimming. Given this object is quite small, I'm just going to attach some clay to the sides, again just to really hold it in place so it doesn't move around. I noticed on one of the ones that I practiced on, it wobbled or was pushed out. There we go. So I'm going to start trimming up. For this I'm going to use this flat tool here and then come in and tidy things up. Now that that's all done, I can flip it over and begin trimming up the top. And here's the final piece. So I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Let me know what your thoughts are in the comments. If you'd like to see me create other shapes in the future. This one was quite fun for me to create something relatively small and quite detailed. But I'm really keen to hear what you guys think and what you think I should make next. So hope you enjoyed, and don't forget to like and subscribe.